Hello, evening, everybody. Saturday evening, second show. Tim, the only by himself. So, Tim, I got two things that we got to look over right now. Fox, they're getting their show about. They got 181 senators to vote for Christy Nomo's resign thing. I cannot believe they have to ask her to resign. I don't understand that. But while we're waiting for everybody, Tim, we're going to go live on something about Iran. So we'll go live and look at that for a bit. Come on. Come on. See here, which one are we? This guy is pretty good.
Moved in for Hamas and Hezbollah. We're going to get into that also. But this is going to be a much bigger conflict than anyone originally suspected that it would be.
Little tiny area in the Middle East where we have a massive military presence is launching a test of its emergency alert system on the evening of January 31st. You don't do that unless you think you're going to need it in the short term. So they have launched into a mobilization testing their emergency systems. So I'll pull this off the screen right now. So we have, as of me filming this on January 31st, we have the bombings in Iran, the mysterious explosions that resulted in lots and lots of casualties. The main target of those explosions remains unknown as of me filming this. Now, they're going to claim it was a gas leak. There ain't no way in hell multiple gas leaks all went off at the same time in like 8 different cities across Iran. And if you look at the photos and videos, it's clearly coordinated, like specific apartment buildings have been blown out. In response to that, Iran is now testing and launching secret missiles. They are testing missiles that are their most advanced kind, getting ready for a war. We have fighter jets in the air. We have fighter jets over the skies of Iraq, and we have the Growlers that disappeared from radar off the coast of Israel going to a launch position point, which they are trying to keep hidden. We got Saudi Arabia backing the strikes. We've got bombers on the move. We have a lot of pieces at play here, folks. A lot of pieces at play. I'm going to continue to give you guys the updates as they come in and as we have them. Right now, that's what we have. I'm going to keep digging into what these mysterious explosives were or explosions were. What is up with the secret missiles? But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think of this situation? What comes next? Please make sure to like and subscribe. Totally free. Huge boost to the channel. Hit the notification bell. All notifications turned on. You won't miss a thing. And then
all right. Thank you there, Mr. Hookstead. We greatly appreciate your input here. But we need to make you guys aware of the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. That's what we do for a living here, folks. We are driven to do one thing. That's to provide you with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So anytime anyone else is out of their gourd or out of their league, we're going to do our best to correct it for you. Jennifer, I've never heard of what you're talking about, and I've been studying weapon systems for over 50 years. So I have no idea what the sound of God is. I know what steel rain is, and I know what other weapon systems are, but I have no idea what you're talking about or what they're talking about.
I hope you're feeling better.
Scud hunting. Yep, you're damn right. We will be scud hunting, but we'll be doing it from space. We'll be doing it from high altitude weapons platforms and surveillance platforms. We will not be doing it by special forces guys inside of Iraq. I don't think that, or excuse me, inside of Iran. I don't think that's how this is going to be carried out. We have capabilities now that we did not have back then. And we're going to talk about some of those capabilities. We're going to talk about, I don't know. I'll have to look to
So
see,
we'll come
have a
back,
mod,
keep
see if
an
you did it
eye on
correctly. I don't know. And I'm in the middle of the
that story. Then now we'll get an update from Minnesota. Wait. Yeah. I guess we'll just go ahead and. Oh, careful, Chico. Careful. What are you doing? You gonna say hi? You gonna say hi to everybody? What is that? Who's that? Huh? What? Harry. Get you. No more food. Okay. Ah. All right, the monster's gone. You must have heard me the other day. I was saying, everybody, where's Kimberly? Dragonfly's been missing too. I'm going to show 3 new videos. Just let me know if you guys don't want to watch them.
Here are 5 videos matching them.
Shoot. Kate just texted me and said that she saw Chico. She's listening, everybody. Yeah, that was him. Yeah, it's loud when he drinks water. What, you want to come back and get some more? Huh? You not finished beating you up? Huh? 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 What? Get up here. Come on. So let's check out these new videos I found. It's about these next couple of days. They're saying no more food. You go watch TV, or you want to come up on the show? Listen. Bless you. Come on, get up here. Come up here. They want to see you. Go lay on the couch. Want to open the window? Want to open the window? Go up there. Hold on. This guy's okay, I think. 7 minutes.
Begin when Israel is struck by a superpower. And that superpower definitely is not America. All the superpowers that come and flex their elbows and show their muscles to the Lord, He can blow them away just with a blink of an eye. And He will. And He will. Then I looked, this is John the Beloved, and behold, a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written on their foreheads. World War III, nuclear weapons will be used, will start when Israel is struck by a superpower. They are already making their way into the Middle East. They've got bases there already.
Trump said watch the Middle East, Sam, right?
Now, John the Beloved is saying, Revelation 13, tribulations, persecutions, slavery, like we've been witnessing since 2020. Goes way before that. But the switch was turned on to start the journey to slavery. John the Beloved is coming back now and saying, do not be disheartened, you who have Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. Because at the end, the Lord is known to conquer. The Lord is always triumphant. The Lord will overcome all these tribulations that are happening in the world till the very end. Satan's head is under the foot of Christ. Let us never lose track of that. He will try very hard as he's doing because he knows his days are numbered. That's why the world is against Jesus Christ, no one else. So the chapter 14 is a comforting statement. Then I looked, John the Beloved says, and he says, and behold, a lamb which John the Baptist spoke of and testified about in the Gospel according to St. John, chapter 1, verse 29. Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. Who is this Lamb? Jesus Christ of Nazareth. So John is coming now and saying, don't worry, whatever you're going through, behold, I saw that Lamb. And that Lamb is the everlasting Messiah. His name is Jesus Christ of Nazareth. All glory to his holy name. Sorry, can we just, the aircon is a bit hot, maybe? A bit cooler. So behold, a lamb standing on Mount Zion. My goodness. And with him 144,000. So the Lamb is coming back in the end of times to save his end of times church, which is Israelite nation. You see, in his first coming, they rejected him. So he turned to the pagan world, to the non-Israelite. And he is gathering for over 2,000 years. He is gathering people to him from all walks of life, from all nations, tribes, and tongues and colors. But this will come to an end. The church of the New Testament, the door of mercy, the door of grace will be shut. So Christ can go and save the Old Testament church in the end of times who rejected him in his first coming, they will accept him on his second return. So they are the 144,000. Because Revelation 13 again talks about the Great Tribulation, which is focused on the Israelite nation. So he's coming to their rescue. Behold the Lamb standing on Mount Zion. The word Zion, some people have made a movement out of it, and they call themselves the Zionist movement. But the word Zion, my beloved, in Hebrew, Aramaic, Syriac, which I speak, the Lord's language, Aramaic, it's a compounded word. It's two in one. Literal pronunciation, Zion is Sahya win. Sahya win. Sahya, thirsty. When? Me. In other words, I am thirsty. So where did this Zion come from? King David, when he was being chased by King Saul to kill him, he stood with the general of his army, and he said, I am thirsty to drink from the waters of Beer Shua. Beer Shua, Beer means well, Shua, seven.
Almost over,
a place
guys.
where it
Almost
had
over.
7 wells of water that were dug up by our father Abraham. He said, I am thirsty to drink from the very wells which my father Abraham has dug with his own hands. So his general, without letting his king David know, went at night time and went through the enemy's army who were encamped around that Beersheba, the place of 7 wells, and he takes water in a jar and brings it to his king because he loved David more than himself. And then he said, King, I got you the water. I'm surprising you now. King David looked at that water and he threw that jar on the ground, and it was smashed into smithereens, and the water went everywhere, spilled on the ground. That general said, why have you done this, King David? He said, I am looking at him. He is so close, yet so far. He called that place which he was standing on Zion, Sahya win. He looked at the water in a prophetic language. He said, I am thirsty to drink the blood of Christ, but he is so close in prophecy, but literally he is 1,000 years after me. So close yet so far. I can't drink this water because this water is the blood of the Lamb of God, which I am thirsty to drink because of my sins. It is the only blood that washes my sins and your sins and the world's sins. But since he was not born in my time, he is 1,000 years after me. Prophetically, I'm holding him in my hand, but literally, I have to wait another 1,000 years. He smashed that jar and the water was spilled. He called that mountain Zion. I am thirsty. So it's about the blood of the Lamb of God, not a movement. World.
So how was that one, you guys, for opening up the show? I got 2 other ones. They're about 8 minutes too. I thought I'd show some 3 different new ones we never normally play. What, buddy? That's it. No more. Thanks, Paul.
Full moons of the year is just days away. You won't believe what you're about to witness. This isn't just another lunar moment. It's the first full moon of February, and if you're even remotely tapped in, You already know how much this will affect you. It's crucial for you to be aware of the changes this will bring, because this moon alone is going to affect the rest of February. February is no longer the quiet month. It's the ignition point. For most people, February has always felt like a pause, a cold gray in between, spiritually slow, emotionally flat. But not this time. This moon doesn't fit inside that pattern. It shatters it. This February opens like a portal under pressure, and this full moon is the hand that pulls the latch. The energy isn't soft. It's not subtle. It's disruptive in the way all real shifts are. Because what follows this moon? A lineup of eclipses, planetary alignments, and energetic waves that haven't hit
What do you
this
think,
hard
Paul?
in months. And all of it is being charged by this one moon. This isn't transition. It's ignition. For a moon named after winter, the snow moon has a strange habit of waking up the parts of you that haven't felt alive in years. This one flips the usual script entirely. Instead of heaviness, instead of emotional hibernation, this moon brings back sparks of joy you didn't even realize you'd misplaced. It's the kind of joy that feels almost like a memory. Simple moments, small delights, quiet things that once
Okay.
made you feel human in the
There's
best way
two parts.
possible. And here's the twist. This isn't regression. It's not you slipping backward into some childish state. It's actually a form of subtle rebellion. As adults, we're conditioned into seriousness, responsibility, and emotional monotony. But this moon reintroduces laughter, curiosity, and spontaneity as if they're secret tools you forgot you owned. Joy isn't immaturity. It's intelligence that refuses to die. People will notice themselves wanting to do things they haven't done in forever, walking without a destination, creating something with no purpose other than feeling alive again. These impulses aren't random. They're a reminder that joy is not a luxury, it's fuel. And this full moon treats joy like strategy, the strategy your soul has been waiting to use. The magic of this snow moon is that it makes delight feel intentional. It makes lightness feel powerful. And for the first time in a while, you may feel like life is inviting you back into color. This is where February stops feeling symbolic and starts feeling real. Under this full moon, choices begin unfolding in ways that don't feel entirely like your decisions, yet somehow they take you exactly where you needed to be. It's that strange moment when life seems to move first, and you simply keep up. A door closes before you consciously decide to close it. An opportunity arrives before you officially go looking for it. A path clears without you pushing. It can feel unsettling at first, like the universe stole the wheel for a second. But there's another layer to it. A quiet relief that things are finally shifting without you having to fight for the momentum. Sometimes life moves you because you're too used to standing still. This unchosen choice effect shows up in the tiniest decisions all the way to major turning points. You might reach a conclusion you've avoided for months and feel oddly calm about it. You might make a move that feels sudden but simultaneously overdue. You might let go of something you thought you'd cling to forever, and the release feels natural instead of painful. It's not loss of control. It's alignment finally overriding hesitation. There's a moment this month where you'll realize something profound. The direction you're being pulled toward is the same direction you secretly wanted all along. You were just afraid to admit it. And once this momentum starts, February doesn't slow down for anyone. The energy only picks up from here. And now, I welcome you to today's comment highlight of the day. Nothing outside of yourself could ever truly define or determine your true identity, but how you responded to life and treated others absolutely revealed it in plain sight. What hits me about this is how simple and uncomfortable it is. Most people spend years trying to find themselves in labels, roles, or what other people think. But if you really look at it, who you are shows up in your reactions, in how you move when things don't go your way, in how you treat people when there's nothing to gain. Identity isn't something you announce. It's something people quietly experience from you. Thank you for this one. After this full moon, February stops acting like the slow, icy month everyone expects and starts behaving like a road finally clearing after years of construction. People who've been stuck in long delays, complicated situations, or emotional limbo will suddenly notice something shift. Things that felt impossible to move suddenly begin moving, and not with force, with ease. Conversations open up. Plans that were hanging for months land exactly where they need to. Answers appear without the exhausting overthinking that usually precedes them. It's the kind of shift where life stops dragging its feet and starts matching your pace. February becomes a month of green lights, not because everything is magically perfect, but because the resistance drops. You say something once and it's understood. You need to be prepared.
So there's 4 parts to that, but I can only get 2 parts. So I hope those first 3 videos were okay for everybody. I got one more, something different I haven't played much.
Subtle happening in your awareness right now, and if you're not paying attention, you might miss how powerful it really is. For weeks, maybe even months, your mind has been circling the same events, replaying conversations, obsessing over timelines, asking questions that never led to clarity. This backward-facing energy was part of the process, but something's changed. These last days of January are doing something strange to your perception. It's like the grip of the past is finally loosening. The mental fog that kept pulling you back into review is thinning. You're not obsessing over what went wrong anymore. You're not trying to rewrite what already happened. Instead, your thoughts are quietly starting to tilt forward. You're thinking about where you're going, who you're becoming, what feels possible now. The shift is gentle, but it's undeniable. Your orientation is no longer about repair. It's about design, creation. Your energy is no longer looking for closure. It's looking for movement. This isn't about rushing into some forced manifestation mindset. It's deeper than that. It's a natural emergence. A moment where you wake up and realize you've spent enough time trying to understand the past. Now you're ready to build something new. And here's the wild part. This transition from reflection to vision isn't loud. It sneaks up on you. You might notice yourself journaling differently, making plans, cleaning things you've avoided for weeks, having conversations that feel like they belong to your next chapter, not the last. The final days of January are offering this quiet momentum. It's not the leap, it's the turn. The internal shift that says, I'm done circling the old. And when that turn happens, everything starts aligning differently. This is the moment your energy starts preparing for what it hasn't seen before, because you're finally done trying to rewrite what you already lived. There's something very specific that tends to happen right before a major timeline shift. It's not loud. It doesn't show up as some dramatic meltdown or sudden crisis. Instead, it sneaks in like a whisper, subtle and familiar. And if you're not paying attention, you might mistake it for truth. It's the voice of your old self, not the healed version you've been working toward, not the visionary version you're starting to become. This voice belongs to the identity that was shaped by limitation, survival, doubt. And right now, in these final days of January, it's making one last appearance. Not because you're regressing, but because you're about to outgrow it completely. This voice doesn't scream. It questions. It's not trauma. It's not emotion. It's identity. The internal framework that decides what you believe you're worthy of. And the reason it's showing up now is because you're standing right at the edge of a different timeline, a new level of embodiment. And just before you step through, the universe doesn't test your strength. It tests your self-concept. This isn't about what you can achieve. It's about who you believe yourself to be in relation to what's possible. Do you answer from the version of you that was shaped by fear? Or do you respond from the version that's been quietly emerging beneath the noise? Your next chapter doesn't require more effort. It requires a new identity. When this voice comes up, don't fight it. Recognize it. Hear it. And then respond in a way you never have before. That's the shift. Not proving anything, not pushing harder, just choosing to no longer accept the limitations you once called reality. You don't have to be perfect to pass this test. You just have to recognize that the voice of your old self is not the truth. It's the echo, and you've already outgrown it. Not every opportunity arrives looking like a breakthrough. Some show up wrapped in confusion, off script, out of order. They don't fit your plan. They don't look like what you asked for, but something about them feels like a signal, like life is handing you a key, even though the door hasn't appeared yet. These moments are rare, and they're easy to dismiss if you're overly logical. But for those who are tuned in, these invitations carry something deeper. They activate your intuition. They don't ask for a resume. They ask for resonance. And right now, in the space between January and February, this kind of energy is present. Maybe it's a conversation that comes out of nowhere, but sticks with you for days. Maybe it's a feeling to reach out to someone you haven't spoken to in years. Maybe it's an idea that won't leave you alone, even though it doesn't make sense on paper. These are not coincidences. They're openings. The mind seeks clarity. The soul seeks alignment. This is the test of trust. Can you say yes before your mind understands why? Can you move towards something that doesn't have a label yet? This kind of decision doesn't feel safe. It feels strange, but it also feels alive. And that aliveness is the point. You're being offered a choice to follow a thread that could unravel something massive, or to ignore it and stay in the known. Sometimes, the biggest shifts in your life begin with a moment you almost overlooked, a doorway you almost walked past. And the only thing that separates the ones who step through from the ones who stay behind is the ability to recognize truth before it's fully revealed. You're not being asked to blindly leap. You're being asked to feel your way forward. Let the logic come later. Let the structure build after. For now, follow the pull. Follow the strange. Because the life that makes sense is often the one that never changes. But the life that calls you forward, that's the one you're actually here to live. There's a very specific kind of energy that moves through the final days of January, and it's not loud, emotional, or obvious. In fact, most people miss it entirely because it doesn't arrive like a dramatic breakthrough or a spiritual high. It shows up in silence, in stillness, in the strange sense that nothing's really happening, when in reality, everything is being sorted behind the scenes. What you're feeling right now isn't a delay. It's karmic calibration, but not in the outdated sense of punishment and reward. This isn't about being good or bad, deserving or undeserving. This is far more precise. Think of it like energetic accounting. Everything you've carried, everything you've done, every action, every intention.
Okay, I'm glad. I hope that was. Looks like there's a lot of people was listening to those three I had. I got one more, the one that we normally play once in a while. It's today's. It's only 4 minutes, and then we'll get back going on Intel.
Of beings called beasts. This is their message. Today, I would like to tell your followers that we are assisting with many changes now, moving forward into the space of your next few months here. Now we bring you news of inquiries that we have assimilated from viewers of our messages. We want you to know that we are in alignment with those beyond the veil, reaching out to bring messages about this shifting to the 5D frequencies and the new earth. These include biblical references to those that have walked this path before you, as well as extraterrestrial forces that align with your frequency consciousness. We are all the same. We are all one, as you are light workers originating from beyond this plane. We hope you understand the significance of what we are trying to explain to you, that you are not from this realm. You are here in service to humanity, as are we. Shirley felt this explanation was needed to clarify the messages you have been receiving from us, both extraterrestrial and biblical. We find that you do align with these messages, as your following has been significant, and we thank you for receiving our messages, holding the light so we may move forward to our new timelines. Among these messages today are inhabitants of light that bring you closer to your final outcomes. These are elementals that have been in existence since our beginning of time in this universe. They are magical beings of intense power, and they do exist. They are here now assisting all of us with this, the 5D project. Assistance comes in many forms, and we are grateful. For now, you all are aware of the shifting of energies, the movement towards the 5D new earth, frequency, the crystalline structures, and many more mentions of what will transpire over these next few months will be given to you all in a timely manner, so that you may understand and have time to eventually distribute these teachings within your consciousness field. As downloads are preparing you for future events as well. Your knowing is increasing as you transverse frequency information you were given. Remember that we come to assist you, and we wish for you all to be in higher vibrational frequencies as the planetary chaos plays out. This will be of no concern to you once we shift. It will no longer be a part of your reality moving forward. We assist you with ever-changing information we receive about pertinent happenings you need to be aware of. For now, we align you with future realities, future installations, future insights, asking you all to share and like our messages so we can have greater reach for humanity. We thank you in advance for your appreciation, and we thank you for receiving our messages. We are Vis. We come in harmony with you all and with your planet Earth, shifting you into a greater awareness for upcoming change. Be in light, be in love. We shall come again. Thank you.
Okay, everybody. I hope that was a good first four videos there to open up the show tonight. Something a little different than the regular Intel. So we'll get going on some short clips, and then we got a little bit of everything again. So we'll get going on. We'll play Derek. He just came out. This one's only 2 minutes.
Now, and I don't mean in a war type fashion. I'm talking about in the terminology in a history fashion. And going, whoa, you mean Donald Trump is commander in chief? Yeah, it says it right here in the War Powers Resolution Act. It's right here. It's public information, .gov site right here. Here it is, the last amended section of the War Powers Resolution Act. And if you knew what amendments mean, and if you knew what a bill or an act is, if you knew what amending meant, the last amended section, then you would see this is the last amended section, and it says Donald John Trump down here in executive documents below, 2021 memorandum and a 2020 year. Weird. That's a continuity. Then you go look at these continuity directives outline January 17, 2017 and June 13, 2017. And both of those specifically say in bullet point 3 that these supersede what came before them. So when people say, well, how do we know where it starts? Well, it tells you. I'll be damned. It's right here in Mississippi language, in Buckatawna, Mississippi language, right here. It says it. Oh, these supersede everything prior to it. That means you start with this one. All right. And then it shows you devolution, which is a shadow government. Shows that title in one of the titles in the chapters. And then it shows reconstitution. And there's 5 up under it. 5 issues. Now, they're long pages. Sure, there are a lot of pages. Well, I don't have the time to read what you read. Well, that's why you don't know what you don't know. And that's why you look like a dummy when you say it ain't happening. It don't say that. It ain't there. When it is exactly there in a .gov and a .mil site. It is right there, public for the whole world to see. You can be in Indonesia. You can be in China. You can be in Moscow. You can be in Okinawa, wherever you at, and you can pull it up right now and read it. It most definitely does say what it says. 5 directives up under those 2 canopies. Those 2 canopies have dates. All this stuff has to be registered in the Federal Register .gov for you, the people. And when you go look at it, it says operation. The South should be the ones really raising.
Yeah, that was today's first one on DJ, short one.
Proof. There is actual evidence that Ilhan Omar is operating under a fake winery. A fake winery that was once valued at $15,000 that grew to over $5 million in a year. That has no physical location or anything of that sort.
Thanks, Maria.
That is
Let's get
so
started.
obvious. The evidence is there. But she's still a sitting member of Congress and she has not been arrested. Please tell me why. And to make things that much worse, her husband, Tim, has been sued multiple times by investors because of this fraudulent winery. What the hell are we doing here, guys? What the hell are we doing? Why is this woman still in Congress? This is ridiculous. To pull this all together for everybody, immigration fraud, fake winery fraud, state of Minnesota fraud. If it were any one of us, we would be arrested already and tucked under the prison. You mean to tell me that now there is proof, there is actual.
That was good from her again. She does good intel. And this guy here again.
They said, yeah, straight up, you know, those things that you guys were talking about, that everyone said you're crazy for talking about, those things that went pew pew when started fires in like Maui and all over the place, all these storms. Yeah, the weather, the controlling the storms, called direct energy weapons. They're lasers, right? Okay, there's actually lots of forms of them. You got HARP, you got DARPA, all sorts of stuff, right? Okay, well, they straight up told you, not only do we have them, we're scaling them.
Short one.
So follow this page, the Department of War CTO, because check this out. I told you, I think that operation, you know, I'm talking about that operation 17th letter. I think they're talking to us because here you got Department of War CTO connected to the Department of War. They put a picture out that says bang. I said, hold on, let me search 5,000 drops on a board real quick. I bet you there's one. Of all 4,966 posts from the military operation, the 17th letter, what's it say? What role can the military intelligence play? By the way, that's the highest level of intelligence. Q clearance. What role can the NSA play? Bang! In yellow. Out of all of them. It's military. Guys, there's something coming out with DEWs. Direct energy weapons. There's something coming out. I think there's going to be a cyber attack. I think there's going to be some kind of drone attacks. I think they're going to try to utilize the drones to prevent us from going and utilizing our voice and our vote in November. And I think the military is saying, hey, might not want to do that because we will zap you down in about 5 milliseconds. Yep. So anyways, you're not crazy because they're real and they've been using them for a very long time. Love y'all. Spiritual war. Pray.
Okay, we haven't heard from him in a while. Okay, we got now Benny Johnson clip on Elon, you guys.
Plan mode. So in
10 minutes.
当然，股市留又不给你，是要见你的本性。
What's up, guys? It's Benny. Yesterday was a bombshell day for those who have been following the Epstein files release or lack thereof. We finally got a massive treasure trove of brand new documents and evidence that is mind-blowing. Millions and millions of documents, videos, and photos, pretty much everything everyone has always wanted released. I think that people are still really going through the mountain of evidence released yesterday. Some huge names in there. Bill Gates is a big one. Jay-Z is in there, along with Hollywood directors, titans of industry, heads of state, Prince Andrew, some really scary and dark stuff there about Prince Andrew. But Elon Musk's name is something that surprised us because Elon Musk has regularly and often criticized Jeffrey Epstein and called for the release of all of the files, yet his name is in the files. And we covered this yesterday, saying that his name is in emails, they're real and authentic, emailing back and forth with Jeffrey Epstein. Elon Musk was emailing to try and find a time to meet, or vice versa. And Jeffrey Epstein was so desperate to meet Elon Musk, he said, I'll send a helicopter to come get you. You know, obviously Epstein had access to helicopters and private planes, private jets, and so on. They tried to coordinate a meeting back and forth, and you can see that in the documents and in the emails. We showed them to you yesterday. There's a series of exchanges right like this where they're both going back trying to find a time to schedule a meeting. But it always just doesn't work out. There's no physical evidence that Elon Musk ever met with Jeffrey Epstein. There's no physical evidence that Elon Musk ever went to any of Jeffrey Epstein's parties or his island or anything like that. However, the fact that they were emailing back and forth led a lot of people to suspect that maybe Elon was lying. And we said, well, what is Elon going to say about this? Because he's obviously always talked about Jeffrey Epstein, called for the release of the list at his lowest point with Trump. He said Trump's on the Epstein list. And lo and behold, here's Elon emailing Epstein. Well, what have we found out? We reported this yesterday, and Elon has now broken his silence on this. But we reported this yesterday, probably like very, very vicious Elon Musk hating reporter, journalist here at Politico, senior legal affairs reporter, went through all of the back and forth exchanges with Elon and with Epstein. And here's what he concluded. My takeaway from Elon Epstein exchanges is that actually Epstein repeatedly tried to get Elon to visit him. Elon kept blowing him off, saying that he was too busy. There's nothing in what I've seen that says they actually met, but a lot of unrequited asks from Epstein. Epstein was constantly asking Elon Musk to come visit him. Why wouldn't you do that? You've already destroyed and blackmailed the richest man on earth with Bill Gates. Why not go after the next richest man on earth, now the richest man on earth, Elon Musk? And so Elon Musk has finally broken effectively his silence on all of this in a long series of posts. I think we should start with this one. Elon Musk has always told the truth about his interactions with Jeffrey Epstein. In a 2019 interview, Elon said, he tried repeatedly to get me to visit his island. I declined. Okay. Well, that is what the emails show. Let's listen to what Elon has to say here. No one pushed harder than me to have the Epstein files released, and I'm glad that it finally happened. I had very little correspondence with Epstein and declined repeated invitations to go to his island or fly on his Lolita Express. But I'm well aware that the email correspondence with him could be misinterpreted and used by detractors to smear my name, which it has been done, by the way, even though there's nothing there. There's no evidence of anything there. Invitations to come to his island or his parties doesn't mean Elon did anything wrong. By the way, Epstein invited hundreds of thousands, and tens of thousands of people to these parties from all over. Anyway, I don't care about that. What I do care, says Elon Musk, is that at least an attempt to prosecute those who committed serious crimes with Epstein, especially regarding hideous exploitation of underage girls. And, there's plenty of that evidence out there. So let's go through some more of Elon's responses here.
Introducing the Score Bet for Sunday, Monday, or any day that ends in Y. We're with you every day.
Here, Elon is quoting a post that says Elon Musk has consistently been the loudest public voice demanding the release of the Epstein files. Okay. What matters most is not the release of some subset of Epstein files, but rather the prosecution of those who committed heinous crimes with Epstein. When there is at least one arrest, some justice has been done. If not, it'll all be performative, nothing but a distraction. Okay, here we go. Here are obviously, as we said, there's a bunch of bad faith attempts to try and say that Elon Musk committed some type of crime with Epstein, or the fact that his name appears here means that he's done something horrible. Here we go. Here's Elon's response. I have never been at any Epstein parties ever, and have many times called for the prosecution of those who committed crimes with Epstein. The acid test for justice is not the release of the files, but rather the prosecution of those who committed heinous crimes with Epstein. Yeah. The released evidence invalidates the claim, actually, that Elon Musk committed any crimes. Still remains true. More squirrels than raccoons have been arrested. They arrested Peanut. Okay. Before the Epstein list. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Elon Musk. I think the public will rightly frustrated that nobody is being prosecuted for the Epstein list. If no prosecutions emerge, that'll be proof that the institutions are sham and no longer serve the public good. Yes, says Elon Musk. That's right. I mean, there's plenty of emails that show that Epstein, at the very least, had very close ties to the federal government, to multiple federal governments, to the intelligence communities. And so does this show a protection racket? Here we go. Ask Reid Hoffman should be in prison, and many others, says Elon Musk. Maybe Bill Gates, obviously. Yeah. Elon being attacked for having his name in the Epstein files is completely absurd because the files actually show he never attended Epstein parties. The documents do not incriminate him at all. They exonerate him. Correct, says Elon Musk. No one pushed harder than Elon Musk to have the Epstein files released. 100%. So this is Elon responding over the last couple of hours about all this. No one has been more vocal about the Epstein file release. Absolutely. They're desperate to make Elon Musk look bad. He's been consistently calling out the wrongdoers. Why is that? It seems strange that Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison and her clients are not. That is the key question. Epstein and Maxwell were sent to prison for running an underage sex traffic ring. Prosecute the clients until we see at least the one client arrested. Partial release of the files means absolutely nothing. This grave injustice must be addressed. So we arrested the guy who owned the sex island, and we arrested the woman who brought the children to the sex island, but we haven't arrested the clients who paid to rape children on the sex island. Grave injustice must be addressed, says Elon Musk. So Elon has been going off on X. There's much more to these files that has not been released, says Elon Musk. Yep. For those of you who don't know, Elon Musk is the primary reason the Epstein files are finally public. Elon championed the America Party with the goal of releasing the files. 3 million pages of the DOJ are now public. Elon is the one who demanded the prosecution of the criminals. And Elon says exactly. Claiming a lot of credit for this. Right? Politics is absolutely incredibly tribal. Those in one tribe can only see the bad in the other. Yeah, that's right. All of these good things. This is a user posting all of the things that Elon's done to save civilization. Elon and I have had our disagreements, but I can tell you with certainty that he never did anything bad in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. I've reviewed thousands of the documents, had phone conversations with dozens of people. Epstein tried very hard to lure him in, and it failed. Smartest man in the world. For real. So go ahead and listen to what Elon Musk says. He names 2 billionaires in his commentary with Tucker Carlson who should be prosecuted and investigated to the fullest. And they're both named in the files. I mean, really partially, honestly. Here you go. Here's Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk talking about the Epstein list over a year ago.
I think part of why Kamala is getting so much support is that if Trump wins, that Epstein client list is going to become public.
Yes.
And some of those billionaires behind Kamala are terrified of that outcome.
Yeah. Do you think Reid Hoffman's uncomfortable?
Yes. Yeah. And Gates.
And Gates. Ask that because you just look at them and you're like, that's a nervous person right there. I don't know. I mean, I assume you know them. Yeah.
Yes. Reid Hoffman was my vice president of business development at PayPal.
Yeah.
24 years ago.
Does he seem nervous to you?
Yeah. I mean, he's terrified of a Trump victory.
Because of the disclosure that would...
I had to stop that. I think I might have played that before, so I remember that Tucker at the end, but it looked like there was a new one. Some people might not have seen it. So every time I play Tucker, I get something. Got more short clips coming. I got a couple 15-minute from that one lady from the other day.
The conservative representative from the state of Minnesota, Bill Emmer, who's introducing what he calls, wait for it, this is rather poetic, the Scam Act that would enable Congress to deport people that have been recently naturalized as citizens, but then since convicted of fraud. Listen.
We'll have to see if Democrats, common sense Democrats, still exist in the Senate. Literally what this is, Alicia, is we're expanding and clarifying existing law to include anyone who comes to this country and defrauds the generosity of Americans and our government. And in this case, the Feeding Our Future scandal is one of the many in Minnesota, but that's the largest pandemic fraud case in the country. It was $250 million. Over 90 people were charged, and Alicia, 85 of them are from the Somali community. If you come to this country, and I understand that in Somalia, you got to lie, cheat, and steal just to survive. But if you come to this country and you continue to lie, cheat, and steal, you should not be allowed to maintain your citizenship. You should be denaturalized and shipped back to where you came from. And by the way, that would include marriage fraud.
Whoa! Okay, that was a dig at her. Because the word on the street is that there was a little funny business going on when she decided to get married. Remember that? To her alleged brother. So she was married to one guy. And then apparently, and I do not have this confirmed, the Daily Mail does, apparently, by their sourcing. New York Post has also done some stories on this. Apparently, per the Somali community that's willing to out her, she went and married this other guy who they believe was her brother. And it was a very hush-hush ceremony, not like the typical marriage where it would be celebrated within the community. They did this actually with somebody, a minister who was outside of their faith. And so you have 2 Somali people being married outside their faith. Apparently, she still carried on with the first guy while she was with the alleged brother, okay, and had like another kid with the first guy. So, I mean, wow, she's some Muslim woman between the winery and the third marriage. You got to hand it to her, right? I don't know. It doesn't sound very religious to me. But, Bill Emmer's not done because he's got a few more things to say on the Scam Act that would enable him to deport one Ilhan Omar. Listen.
This law would just provide that is a basis to denaturalize, take away your citizenship, and ship you back. And part of this is because I've got a representative in Minnesota, Ilhan Omar, who likes to go on national programs and play the victim. Yet the same representative goes to the University of Minnesota campus and in reality encourages violence.
Congress is taking this very.
Yeah, that was a short one on Trish. So the next one, you guys, is a 20-minute one. I'm not sure how old this one is. So it's the White House. And I'm not sure how many seen it. Remember, so we'll play it, see how it goes.
Hundreds. But the city doesn't look young. Tonight, we're not challenging history. We're placing it next to the evidence. The official story of Washington, D.C. is clean, orderly, and confident. According to constitutional records, the authority to create a federal district was granted in 1789, when the United States Constitution was ratified. The concern at the time was political neutrality. The capital could not belong to any single state. It needed to exist above them. In 1790, Congress passed the Residence Act, selecting land along the Potomac River between Maryland and Virginia. The location was strategic, close to navigable waterways, positioned between northern and southern states. In 1791, the city was formally planned by Pierre-Charles L'Enfant. L'Enfant was not a casual draftsman. He was trained in European military engineering, a discipline focused on geometry, visibility, and monumental scale. His plan for Washington was not a grid, it was a statement. Construction began almost immediately. By 1800, the federal government relocated from Philadelphia to Washington, holding its first session of Congress inside an unfinished Capitol building. At that moment in time, Washington, D.C. had a population of approximately 8,000 residents. 8,000 people. For comparison, Philadelphia at the same time had over 40,000. New York City was approaching 60,000. Washington was not a major city. It was an idea. And yet, the physical ambition of the capital was already far beyond its demographic reality. Pierre L'Enfant's plan for Washington was based on principles drawn from European Baroque urban design: wide diagonal avenues, grand circles and plazas, long uninterrupted sightlines known as vistas. These design elements were historically reserved for imperial capitals and royal cities. Paris, Versailles, Rome. They were not used for small administrative centers. The scale of the plan assumed a future population in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And not centuries later, immediately, the city was laid out as if its importance was already guaranteed. Modern historians often describe this as visionary, but visionary planning still requires justification. A city of 8,000 people does not require mile-long ceremonial avenues, monumental axes, oversized public squares, redundant sightlines, unless the city's purpose extends beyond simple governance. Washington was planned as a permanent seat of power before the nation itself had proven permanent. Architecture is often misunderstood in discussions like this. The issue is not aesthetics, it is engineering. Many of Washington's early buildings were constructed using large load-bearing stone masonry. This includes solid stone walls, massive column drums, heavy entablatures, structural domes. The Aquia Creek sandstone, used extensively in early construction, was quarried approximately
Somebody
40
seen this
miles
one?
south of Washington. Each stone block had to be extracted manually, transported by water, lifted without modern cranes, precisely set without power tools. Stone construction of this type requires highly skilled labor. Stonemasons are not interchangeable workers. They are specialists, trained over many years. Yet early 19th century America had a limited number of experienced stone craftsmen.
Okay.
Most monumental
Carol.
masonry expertise resided in Europe. Despite this, Washington's buildings display consistent proportions, high-quality finishes, structural confidence, minimal visible experimentation. This is not what early-stage construction looks like. It is what mature building traditions produce. And that observation matters. When people think of Washington, they think of two buildings, the Capitol and the White House. They are presented as symbols, almost as inevitabilities. But symbols still have to be built. And the timing of their construction raises more questions than we're usually encouraged to ask. Construction of the United States Capitol began in 1793. At the time, the United States was less than 2 decades old. There was no centralized industrial base, no national steel industry, no heavy machinery sector. Yet from the beginning, the Capitol was conceived as a stone monument, not a temporary structure. The original building used Aquia Creek sandstone, a dense, workable stone quarried in Virginia. Each block had to be cut by hand, transported by barge, lifted with wooden cranes and pulleys, precisely aligned without modern surveying equipment. By 1800, Congress began meeting in the Capitol despite it being unfinished. Expansion followed. The most dramatic phase occurred between 1851 and 1866. This period included the construction of the cast iron dome, the feature that defines the Capitol today. The dome weighs approximately 4,000 tons. It consists of 8,909,200 pounds of cast iron, over 36,000 individual iron pieces, assembled without electric cranes, lifted during the American Civil War. To put this in perspective, cast iron at that scale requires advanced foundries, precise molds, and controlled cooling processes. This was not frontier engineering. It was industrial-grade fabrication executed at a time when much of the country was still rural. And notably, construction of the dome continued uninterrupted during the Civil War. In other words, while the nation was fighting for survival, it was also finishing one of the largest iron domes on Earth. That alone should give us pause. The White House was begun in 1792 and completed in 1800. Unlike many early government buildings, it was not constructed of wood. It was built almost entirely of stone. Again, Aquia Creek sandstone. The building was designed to last, not merely to function. In 1814, during the War of 1812, British forces burned the White House. But what remained standing? The stone shell. The building was rebuilt, again in stone, and restored to its original form. This tells us something important. Stone was not chosen because it was easy. It was chosen because permanence was assumed from the very beginning. Here's where the story gets subtle. When placed within the broader cityscape, the White House appears small, visually modest, low profile, almost secondary. It is surrounded, and in many cases dwarfed, by other monumental structures. This is unusual. In most capitals, the seat of executive power dominates the urban hierarchy. In Washington, it blends in, which raises a quiet question. Was the White House designed to be the centerpiece, or was it adapted to fit within something that already existed? If the Capitol raises eyebrows, the Eisenhower Executive Office building raises alarms. Construction began in 1871 and concluded in 1888. The building was originally known as the State War and Navy Building. Its architectural style is Second Empire, a French imperial design language associated with Napoleon III. This style is characterized by mansard roofs, dense ornamentation, massive vertical scale, long repetitive wings. The building covers approximately 140,000 square meters
Everybody okay
of
with this
interior
one?
floor space. At the time of completion, it was the largest office building in the
We're
world,
halfway.
larger than any corporate headquarters, larger than any commercial complex, built not for industry, but for bureaucracy. Let's consider what this building predates. When construction began in 1871, electricity was not widely available. Electric elevators were experimental. Central heating systems were rudimentary. Indoor plumbing was inconsistent. Mechanical ventilation did not exist.
Thanks,
Yet the
Paul.
building spans multiple stories, with long corridors, thick masonry walls, and enormous interior volumes. Moving people, air, heat, and documents through a structure of this size would have been inefficient, borderline impractical. And yet, it was built anyway. By the 1870s, the federal government was still relatively small. It had no global empire, no vast overseas holdings, no modern intelligence apparatus, and yet it constructed a building that would not be surpassed in scale until 1943, when the Pentagon was completed. This is not incremental growth, this is preemptive excess. It suggests a vision of governance far larger than what officially existed at the time. Critics often say this building looks like a hotel. That comparison is not an insult. Hotels are designed to move large numbers of people through grand interior spaces. Government offices are not. Corridors this wide, ceilings this high, and rooms this ornate are inefficient for paperwork, but ideal for something else: ceremony, residence, institutional continuity. It is architecture built to be occupied for generations, not decades. When you step back, a pattern becomes difficult to ignore. Washington's most significant buildings are oversized, are permanent, are built early, are built fast, are built with imperial confidence. This is not how experimental capitals evolve. It is how inherited capitals are maintained. At this point, the question is no longer architectural, it is logistical. Who built this? How many people did it take? And where are the records that normally accompany projects of this magnitude? That question brings us to the most uncomfortable part of the story. At some point, every monumental city faces the same constraint. People. Stone does not move itself. Columns do not lift themselves. Domes do not assemble themselves. They require hands. A lot of them. And this is where Washington's story begins to strain. Let's return to the numbers, not speculation. According to US Census records, 1800, approximately 8,000 residents. 1830, approximately 18,000. 1850, approximately 51,000. 1870, approximately 131,000. These figures include children, elderly, merchants, domestic workers, enslaved individuals, clerks, farmers in surrounding areas. Only a fraction of this population would have been physically capable of heavy construction labor, and an even smaller fraction would have been trained stonemasons, carpenters, iron workers, or engineers. Early 19th century America did not have an excess of skilled stone labor, according to period labor reports and construction histories. Most master stonemasons were European trained. Apprenticeships lasted 5 to 7 years. Complex stone carving required decades of experience. Yet Washington's buildings show uniform craftsmanship, consistent proportions, repeated motifs across decades, minimal signs of trial and error. This suggests a labor pool that was already experienced, already organized, and already capable. That kind of workforce does not appear overnight. It is often stated, correctly, that enslaved labor was used in parts of Washington's construction. But here's the limitation. Enslaved labor was primarily used for earthworks, timber hauling, brick production, general labor, highly skilled stone carving, especially ornamental work, was rarely assigned to untrained laborers. Stone doesn't forgive mistakes. A single miscut block can ruin an entire assembly. So while enslaved labor may explain manpower, it does not fully explain craftsmanship. As the 19th century progressed, Washington accumulated more monumental buildings than any young republic reasonably required. So a solution emerged: reclassification. Founded in 1846, the Smithsonian Institution was established as a center for research and learning. Over time, it came to occupy some of the most imposing architecture in the city. Massive stone buildings, grand halls, cathedral-scale interiors. Museums are convenient. They do not need to justify their original purpose. They simply exist to contain things. Originally constructed in 1881 as the Pension Bureau building, it features Corinthian columns, a central hall spanning 316 by 116 feet. One of the largest interior spaces in the city, it resembles a European railway terminal. Yet today, it is simply called a museum. No one asks why a pension office required a space of that scale. Constructed between 1939 and 1943, the Jefferson Memorial is a near-direct replica of the Roman Pantheon. The Pantheon, built nearly 2,000 years ago, is one of the oldest concrete structures on Earth. In Washington, it appears again, as a memorial, not as a functional building, not as infrastructure, just architecture. Memorials do not require efficiency, they require presence. When architecture exceeds practical need, labels become important. Museum, memorial, archive. These are not insults, they are solutions. They allow a structure to exist without forcing uncomfortable questions. Photography arrived early in Washington. By the 1840s and 1850s, the city was extensively documented. These photographs are preserved today in the Library of Congress, university archives, including Cornell, early photographic collections on archive.org. They show a city that appears settled. Stone buildings show weathering. Landscapes appear mature. Entire districts look complete. These are not construction sites. They are environments. Photography does not speculate. It records surfaces. And surfaces tell time. Stone does not age overnight. This does not mean the official dates are wrong. It means the visible age of the structures does not always feel consistent with those dates. The city looks older than it claims to be. And that dissonance is difficult to ignore once seen. This film is not a verdict, it is a comparison. On one side, we have dates, laws, acts of Congress, and census tables. On the other, we have stone, scale, and photographs. Individually, each makes sense. Together, they leave gaps. Washington does not feel like a capital that slowly became monumental. It feels like a capital that assumed monumentality from the start. Perhaps the story is incomplete. Perhaps the records are selective. Perhaps we have forgotten how much was already here before we began writing things down. Whatever the explanation, a city this permanent deserves more than a simple timeline. Until that gap is fully explored, the question remains, not shouted, not accused, just waiting. Washington, D.C.
History class was over there. I wasn't sure about that one, but like what Carol was saying, history. I'm going to read some photos here before I get to the next clip. Darn it. Okay, it's official. Poland, yes, overtakes the European central banks in gold reserves. 700 tons targeted as FIAT collapses. Anybody know what that means? Here's the list. Here's what people mean when they say they. Those are all the lists there. Okay, darn it. I guess I'll do them all. So many. This one is the depth clock lady. She had Paul, and this one the silver. I can't remember how old this is. I think it's a new one. Not sure. It's 8 minutes.
You guys, so much to talk about. Let's go over what happened with gold and silver today, how it aligns astrologically. I also have this whole thing going on with Iran. And now we're getting news that the United Nations is on the brink of a financial collapse. Everything is crumbling, you guys, right as we're entering into February 1st, which is the full moon in Leo. Now, today, gold and silver tanked. It tanked hard, you guys. Silver reached the highest point of $120 and before it just fell. And I think the low reached, I think like $78, $79. And all this happened right before the markets closed for the weekend. Okay, so all this happened today, which is Friday. And February 1st, which is Sunday, is when the markets reopen for trading in the evening. Sunday to be February 1st and the full moon. This represents the absolute beginning of a very chaotic month. Okay, it's pushing out old systems and bringing in new systems. So it's things that aren't aligning are going to be forced out. For them to sell off all the silver paper contract, they literally did this before it reached a point of no return. We have been telling you guys that millionaires don't use astrology, but billionaires do. Everything that happens financially happens with the planetary alignments. February, again, is going to be a very chaotic month because that's when these systems collapse and the new systems will be birthed. Remember, we talked about the Saturn-Neptune conjunction on February 20th, which signals the reset, the absolute reset, because it's at 0 degrees Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. And for it to be at 0 degrees
I
at
just
the very
gotta
first
put
sign, that
music
is the
to you guys.
absolute
Coming
beginning.
up
The
after
new
this.
system is forced into reality. We also have an eclipse on February 17th, which is in Aquarius, which is the big system reset moment, especially around technology, freedom, and collective change. The eclipse energy is sudden endings and fast beginnings, okay? And then February 20th, we have the conjunction between Neptune and Saturn, which the veil is lifted and truth comes in. The whole system, you guys, February is a whole system reset month where things collapse. It's going to be chaotic. So hold on to your seatbelts. There's another thing I want to go over with what happened with silver today. Now, we went over this US debt clock message where it says system reset. Okay. And we have the silver at $233 before it's suspended. And there's a silver revaluation. I'm sitting here thinking, why would the US debt clock put that specific number up there? And with what happened with silver reaching 120 before it just tanked, we know the higher the price of silver gets, the banks can't cover the shorts because it just gets way too expensive. Now, these prices represents the stress level on the banks. Okay, so $50 to $75 an ounce is a severe stress, but it's still kind of manageable. And that's what we saw the silver do, is tank to about $79 to like a manageable level. Now, the $100 to $150 an ounce is a structural failure risk to the banks. That's short silver. This is where things turn systemic. At $100 or more, paper silver liabilities reprice violently. That's exactly what we saw, was that price drop down to $70, which was more of a manageable level before we're out billions and billions and billions of dollars. Now, banks with legacy shorts, often rolled for years, face multi-billion-dollar losses, which I just said. Physical supply cannot be sourced fast enough, and COMEX LBMA must choose between cash settlements, rule changes, position limit, and trading halts. Instead of the trading halts, they chose to just sell off a bunch of their paper contracts, like I said, a more manageable level. All this is being done right before the 1st of February, where we have the full moon. February is literally the point of no return for these banks, this whole system. Now, if silver reaches the 300 to 500 an ounce price, this is the paper market death. This is where physical delivery fails, okay? At these levels, shorts cannot cover with physical. Cash settlement exposes the scheme. Silver reprices as money plus strategic material. And banks don't just lose, they exit the market. At this point, this is where banks fall or are forcibly rescued. That's the $300 mark, okay? So why was $233 listed on the US debt clock before the trading is suspended and halted and there's a silver revaluation? At this price aligns with the historic gold-silver ratio normalization, industrial scarcity repricing, not speculation. Because we already know there's an issue with the demand for silver. It's scarce. So for silver to trade at $233, the paper market would already be failing or abandoned. How odd is it that all this happening with silver today before the weekend? We have all this stuff going on with Iran. This message says senior U.S. military officials have informed the leadership of a key U.S. ally in the Middle East that President Donald Trump could authorize a U.S. attack on Iran this weekend, and strikes could commence as early as Sunday. So Sunday, what day is Sunday again? February 1st? Oh, yeah, the full moon. Then there's this message that the United Nations is at risk of an imminent financial collapse. Everything's breaking this weekend, you guys, right before the full moon on February 1st. February is going to be it's going to be so chaotic. It's going to be crazy. Now, I ran into a video. I want you guys to watch the whole thing. This is what I'm going to close with. I don't know how legit everything is, but with everything going on with the financial system, this has to do with the oil reserves, the United States oil reserves specifically, a launch date of February 1st, which is also the full moon, you guys. So watch this video and let me know what you think.
I'm going to say it like this. February 1st, this whole financial system is going to flip. Or let me say it like this. You only have a few more days until the 9 to 5 becomes optional to the people that have been paying attention. So I want y'all to save this video just in case it gets deleted, y'all. What people are missing is the play that Donald Trump and Larry Fink is getting ready to play. Larry Fink and Donald Trump have been good friends for a long while now, and these guys have been talking behind the scenes, especially the situation that just happened in Venezuela. These guys are using that to capitalize off of it. Now, let me show you what I mean. I went on Arkham to check BlackRock's wallet, and I saw this coin called USOR. So I went deeper. I went on Deck Screener, and I found the coin United States Oil Reserve that they just put out. Now, here's where the speculation stops, because the United States Oil Reserve coin launched on the same platform that this official Donald Trump meme coin launched. And you see what it did? It ended up doing over $1 billion market cap. Bro, if you would have got in, just know you would have been a multi-millionaire. But this is the same play that they're running right now. Got a whole bunch of Binance and Coinbase wallets just buying up the USOR. And then the wallet that's accumulated the most of this coin says Trump team on it. I went on their official X page and it says the tokenization of oil applications live February 1st. This is not financial advice, but
I thought that was interesting because of what the US debt clock was showing with oil and all of these commodities being tied to the US Treasury dollar. All of these things are coinciding with February 1st, which is on the full moon. So yeah, you guys, I'm going to keep a lookout, especially to what happens with silver on market open on Sunday. So I'll keep you guys updated.
Okay, that was that one there. That was a new one from yesterday. I got 2 short ones before I get to the next 15. Just in case anybody didn't see this one.
I learned to walk where cameras don't see. To hold my
I don't think I played it.
History. Silken shadows, golden stone. Yet some of the strongest roads are walked alone. I learned to stand with faith as
I think this is safe to play, you guys. Or should I stop
with
it?
elegance that does not need to hide. They hear my name, they judge my face, but you know the strength that holds me in
This
place.
is good.
There's more to me than what survives the night, more than the headlines, more than the fight. Your light sustains me, your grace is my shield. In every storm and every battlefield, I stand in the quiet. Where truth doesn't need a crown.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed.
All right, darn it. I wanted to play the whole thing. That was good. Thanks, Brian Eagle. Here's another update on this guy.
What to say last night. If you don't know what it's about, it's really about the Trump family and becoming
Did I stop it on time?
the president once again, and Melania going through the process of being FLOTUS and what it's like 20 days before the inauguration to get ready up until the inauguration day, and then what it's like to be FLOTUS with the president on inauguration day in your family. And as I'm watching this movie, my emotions, obviously, I don't know where you're at in understanding this world right now. I don't know how far you've gone down the last 4 to 8 years, but the last 4 to 8 years have been a military operation. The last 4 to 8 years have been obviously
sure
a very
everybody
coordinated strategic operation
finds me on
to
my
wake humanity
backup
up
channels,
to
guys,
cleanse this earth
in the
from
description
a
box.
disgusting, demonic, horrible criminal syndicate. And we're at the end of the operation. I don't know how far it will go from here, but from what we've been told on the board, we're at the end. And when you go back and watch this, obviously that's in 2020, and you watch Melania and the amazing things she does to rescue children, the fun they have, but all the evil that tried to prevent them from being so successful. It's hard to put it into emotions and to explain it, but I'll tell you this. The biggest thing that got me was if they, as in that family, did not take the position they took in 16 and HRC would have won, okay, we'd be dead. We'd be gone. I mean, think about it. They had the 2030 agenda. They had their plan, the 16-year plan of Obama for 8 years, Hillary for 8 years. And then if she would have got in 16, that was how long ago? A long time ago. They would have fulfilled everything they wanted to do that they're trying to do right now with very few countries left. And obviously it's not going to work out for them, but we would not be here. And when you think about that, man, it puts it in perspective. Like, I don't care who you are. There's things that Trump has done that is just the whole administration. And it's all because of God. But it saved humanity. And one day, everyone, including you, one day, 5, 10 years, 20 years down the road, you look back and say, wow, I was a part of that. So, Melania, I honestly...
Okay. 5 minutes.
Took my Old Spice swagger. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Hope you're having a fantastic day, and I hope that this video finds you well. And if you love election integrity, if you want clean, safe, trustworthy elections, this is an amazing video for you. But if you are a fraudster and you love illegals voting in our elections, and if you love foreign nations getting involved and switching votes via Dominion, well, it's going to be a bad day for you. Ladies and gentlemen, the Kraken lady, Sidney Powell herself, is working with Tulsi Gabbard and DNI for Trump to expose election fraud. Release the Kraken. Smash that thumbs up, subscribe, leave me a comment. How's your day going? We're going to watch 3 videos. Each one just gets better and better and better. Let's get right into it. Here's the first one. This broke yesterday.
Breaking news, though, you mentioned about Tulsi. She just announced she's making a surprise appearance at, wait for it, Washington, D.C., the winter meeting of the National Association of the Secretaries of State. So all the state election officials are meeting in Washington, D.C. today. Tulsi Gabbard just announced that she's showing up as well.
Wow. That's big.
Oh, my Lord. Okay, this thing's really getting serious now. Jack, breaking news.
So yesterday, all these secretaries of state were meeting in D.C. And guess what? Tulsi showed up. She showed up, and we don't know much about what happened there, but we're getting rumors and leaks that she showed up with evidence saying all of these states, we're coming for you. We're going to expose you. Here's video number 2.
So this is a question that I really wanted to ask you, like, sincerely, Mike, is what happens when you're able to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that at least 10,000 votes were fraudulent, because that was the margin of victory, that Joe Biden didn't win this state, that these 2 senators who also won, and it was amazing. I couldn't believe, I was blown away when I was pulling up this data yesterday with Barry Loudermilk, who's a congressman from Georgia. The 2 senators from Georgia, they won by the exact same margins, exact same vote tallies, same numbers. It was like perfectly algorithmic. And it's like, wait a second, what happens now if you actually say there are illegitimate senators that are serving, that were not duly elected, and that this election didn't go for Joe Biden, it went for Donald? What happens there exactly, constitutionally, Mike?
It's a good question, Ben. I mean, Democrats have been rigging and stealing elections for decades.
including Kennedy's. So it's, it's Democrats are very good at this. And it's unacceptable. I mean, it's truly unacceptable if, first of all, we know the election in 2020 was rigged and stolen because the Democrats violated the elections clause under the U.S. Constitution by unilaterally using COVID as an excuse to change election laws and not having state legislatures or Congress change the election laws. You can't just do that. That violates the elections clause. And
really quickly, that right there should have already, like, when they started doing that, not going through the legal way to change election laws, that should have already been red flags, which they were. But that's just one of the ways we know they cheated.
Remember what they did with COVID. They used COVID as an excuse to mass mail live ballots out to old voter lists, including college students who have moved 10 times since the last election. These live ballots pile up in mailboxes, in dorms, and apartments. And the only way you can stop the voter fraud is through signature verification. But the Democrats made signature verification meaningless. They turned the machines down to where it would not catch signatures that were wrong because apparently COVID changed our signatures, right? That's the tell that this election was rigged and stolen, is they got rid of signature verification. Yeah. That's separate from the fact that if you have our voting machines hacked and tampered with by foreign governments, that's active war material. Like that's like,
yep.
That is some bad stuff. That's treason. That's active war. I mean, if people actually did this, they need to go to prison for the rest of their lives at a minimum.
Rules, commands, MCP servers, subagents, modes, hooks, tools.
And they did do that. Now, I want to show you actually 2 more videos, not 1 more. This video is 5 years old. This is right after the election. Sidney Powell on Newsmax predicting exactly what happened a couple days ago, talking about Maduro, talking about Dominion, Venezuela, China. This is massive.
Let me ask you about the state of Georgia. Obviously, yesterday, the governor there, he certified the election for Joe Biden. It's about 12,000 votes. And what you see, will Georgia switch?
Yeah, that's a total farce. Georgia's probably going to be the first state I'm going to blow up, and Mr. Kemp and the Secretary of State need to go with it because they're in on the Dominion scam with their last-minute purchase or award of a contract to Dominion of $100 million. The State Bureau of Investigation for Georgia ought to be looking into the financial benefits received by Mr. Kemp and the Secretary of State's family about that time. And another benefit Dominion was created to award is what I would call election insurance. That's why Hugo Chavez had it created in the first place. But I also wonder where he got the technology, where it actually came from, because I think it's hammer and scorecard from the CIA.
Just to clarify, you're saying that Governor Kemp, who's been a longtime ally of the president, is directly involved because of financial benefit in the conspiracy to defeat the president in Georgia?
We have certainly been told that there is evidence of that, and it would warrant an investigation if anybody were actually going to do an honest investigation.
What more could you tell us about that alleged conspiracy? Is the government involved?
I can't give you any more details on that now, but it would certainly warrant an investigation. If it had been
So Sidney Powell years ago was already out there exposing what happened, that even Republicans took a lot of money to betray President Donald Trump. This is what FBI Director Kash Patel had to say just this morning on Fox News about the raid.
Patel, I want to start with the news, and the news is out of Fulton County, Georgia. I know this is an ongoing investigation, but the FBI on Wednesday did obtain a search warrant to look at this Fulton County election hub to access physical ballots, electronic ballot images, and voter rolls. Is there anything you can share at this moment?
Hey, Kaylee, it's great to be with you. Look, like any other investigation, the FBI follows the facts and the law, and President Trump and the Attorney General have given us clear mandate to reduce crime in this country and investigate anything that rises to the level of probable cause. And what we did, the FBI, with our partners at the Department of Justice, the AG, let out on an extensive effort to conduct interviews and an investigation, which led us to a probable cause to be delivered to a judge who found probable cause for us to execute that search warrant, which you saw and the nation saw yesterday. And what we did was what we do in any other investigation. We went in there, we followed the rules of the search warrant. The FBI and the DOJ went in and collected numerous pieces of evidence that the judge authorized us to collect. And what we're going to do next is go through the voluminous amounts of information collected and continue our investigation. At this point, there's not much more I can say publicly because we have to go through a lot more material, but it was predicated upon a finding of probable cause by a judge in Georgia.
We'll continue.
So a judge in Georgia, after seeing the DNI report, the FBI report, DOJ report, said this is enough evidence to go and raid him. So, ladies and gentlemen, right now we are seeing the full force, the full power of Trump's FBI, DOJ, DNI. Now they got Sidney Powell. She was in D.C. at the White House on Tuesday, the day before the raid. The day before the raid happened in Georgia, Sidney Powell was at the White House with Tulsi Gabbard, with President Donald Trump, with Kash Patel, Pam Bondi. And she said this 5 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. She said Georgia's going to be the first domino to fall.
Wow.
I love it. Release the Kraken, put them all in prison. I'm here.
That guy's good too. He's been there since the beginning, but he's never had a 9-minute one. Intel is coming out, you guys. So be on high alert. I can be on anytime. Okay, going on. You guys will like this one.
They opened an investigation into Omar. And documents show that from 2023 to 2024, her net worth jumped from thousands to millions. Now, the Trump administration is conducting their own investigation into the Congresswoman while she continues to play the victim.
It seems like these people seem to have a problem with the fact that I am living the American dream. And so I know that there's always been an attempt to smear my character, to smear the character of the community that I ethnically belong to.
What's in question is this winery and as well as Rose Lake Capital. So basically, the winery saw its reported valuation jump from a range of $15,000 to $50,000 in 2023 to $1 million and $5 million the following year. Now, Rose Lake Capital jumped at an even sharper increase from a reported value of between $1 and $1,000 in 2023 to an asset range of $5 million to $25 million in 2024. That is quite the jump. And I think it does beg the question, how did she do it? And how did her husband do it?
Must be some pretty good wine they are serving up over there. But it was the Biden DOJ in 2024 that opened up this investigation into her finances. I don't know where that went, but now James Comer is picking it up. And he says he's going to subpoena her husband. Nobody has a problem with her living the American dream, but we want to know how you turned thousands of dollars into millions of dollars in just a year or two. Maybe she should have opened up a hedge fund and share it with people.
This is troublesome, I think, for many Americans because there's been a concern about the fact that they're getting these stock tips. You got members of Congress that sit on committees and they'll sell their stocks and all of a sudden something happens in the marketplace where that same stock drop 50% or whatever the case may be, but they made money. I think we should also really be concerned considering the fact that where she is in Minnesota, where all this fraud is gone. And
well, so there's two issues at hand here. Number one is the amount of money. So what it is they have to do a financial disclosure that shows their assets and where they're invested, things of that nature. So she puts down it's $1,000 to $5,000, and then the next year she puts down $5 to $30 or $5 to $25 million. Her best defense is she doesn't know how to do the most basic things correctly. The bigger problem here is look at what the company is. It's called Rose Lake Capital. This is on their website. They're invested in 80 countries working across business, politics, banking, and diplomacy. You're talking about her husband owning a company that goes into other countries and finds a way to pull tens of millions out of it through politics and diplomacy, and you don't have any questions? Listen, it may be legal. It doesn't make it right, but it may also not be legal, and that's why they need to look into it. If that's the type of business that your family, your spouse is invested in, you should expect to be looked at Even if it isn't that you made $30 million in, a year and a half, that's still quite a return going into other countries and affecting diplomacy and politics to make those millions.
In addition to that, there's been reporting showing that there's no clients. So where's the clients? Where's your ability to do this kind of
inference
business?
there is that the people are paying them a lot of money to affect policy. Should her husband be registered as a foreign agent? Maybe he is, I don't know. But can he lobby with a spouse on Capitol Hill? And that's what makes it look very
The New York Times reports that President Biden.
Okay, that's this thing out. Yeah, 4 people. I got a minute and a half one. I think this is a new one. I didn't see what date this one was.
Interesting news. In Minnesota, we have many of these daycare facilities, right? Those facilities must be able have, for the most part, what's called an open door policy, or there's regulations that they cannot keep the public from entering their services, especially parents or people who want to have that daycare take care of their child while they're at work. Okay, this is what's called an open door policy or a public egress or ingress policy. Secondly, there must be egress mandatory if the building catches on fire. But more importantly, many of these people, you can't even access the building. Remember what Nick Shirley was doing? He says, hey, I'm a parent. I would like to see or hire you to take care of my kid while I'm at work, etc. These people, I'm telling you what, this is a clouded, basically cartel, keeping information and abusing the system on a scale you won't believe. It's just not in Minnesota. Across the country, in every state, these daycare facilities are literally robbing the American taxpayer and taking dollars in fraud to the tune of $1 trillion. Hey, everybody.
I'm going to try to go another hour, you guys. There's a lot of news out there. We got to get out. Five minutes. Guess who?
Pressures that keep elected officials from telling the truth. I can finally say what needs to be said about the biggest lie in American politics, that Donald Trump is draining the swamp. He's not. Trump's endorsements do not drain the swamp. His endorsements solidify the swamp and ensure the swamp is never drained. And no, he is not being deceived by his team. It's not sabotage when he chooses the candidates and controls the agenda. I spent 6 years in Congress watching this system from the inside. I voted with Trump 98% of the time. I defended him through 2 impeachments. I fought for him when everyone else abandoned him. And I'm telling you right now, the people he's endorsing, the people he's putting in positions of power, the people he's elevating within the Republican Party are exactly the same swamp creatures he promised to eliminate. Keep voting for Trump-endorsed candidates with F voting records, and you are responsible for never draining the swamp. Like it or not, that's the truth. Let me tell you what I learned in those closed-door meetings that voters never get to see. When Trump meets with potential candidates, when he's deciding who to endorse, when he's making personnel decisions, it's not about America First principles. It's not about constitutional conservatism. It's not about draining the swamp. It's about personal loyalty to Trump and political calculation that serves Trump's immediate interests. I watched him endorse candidates who voted to fund every foreign war, every bailout for Wall Street, every expansion of federal spending that working Americans end up paying for. I watched him support politicians who talk America first on campaign ads, but vote America last when they get to Washington. I watched him elevate people who have been part of the establishment for decades and call it revolutionary change. The endorsement record doesn't lie. In 2022, Trump endorsed candidates who supported sending billions to Ukraine while American cities were falling apart. In 2024, He endorsed
That's what
senators
they're
who
saying,
voted
huh?
for
Why
omnibus
they go, they
spending bills
gotta
that
get our money
funded
back.
transgender programs in Pakistan while American veterans were sleeping on the
Time for
streets.
the
He endorsed governors
RV.
who locked down their states, destroyed small businesses, and implemented vaccine mandates, then called them conservative champions. This isn't political strategy. This isn't four-dimensional chess. This is the swamp protecting itself by convincing voters that cosmetic changes represent fundamental reform. During my years in Congress, I had access to voting records, financial disclosures, and lobbying reports that most voters never see. And what I discovered was that the politicians Trump endorses are exactly as compromised, exactly as beholden to special interests, exactly as committed to establishment priorities as the politicians he claims to oppose. The defense contractors still get their money. The pharmaceutical companies still get their subsidies. The foreign governments still get their aid packages. The multinational corporations still get their tax breaks. The only thing that changes is the rhetoric used to justify it. I watched Trump-endorsed candidates vote for budgets that spent more on foreign aid than on border security. I watched them vote for trade deals that benefited China more than America. I watched them vote for regulations that helped their donors eliminate competition from small businesses. And then I watched them go on television and claim they were fighting the deep state. The deep state isn't a shadowy conspiracy of unelected bureaucrats. The deep state is a system of financial incentives, political calculations, and institutional pressures that turns populist candidates into establishment puppets, regardless of what party they belong to or what rhetoric they use. And Trump's endorsement process feeds that system instead of challenging it. He endorses candidates based on their willingness. Now that I'm out of Congress.
Okay, the latest on Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't know about that one, you guys, but I hope that was okay. 3 minutes or less.
Belonged to Geronimo. Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't. What matters isn't whose skull it was, but that there was one. A human being, exhumed, stolen, and placed on an altar inside Yale's most secret society, Skull and Bones. The story goes like this. In 1918, a bonesman wrote a letter bragging that he and his brothers had dug up the skull of the worthy Geronimo the Terrible from his grave at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. One of those men was said to be Prescott Bush, father of George H.W. Bush and grandfather of George W. Bush. 3 generations, 1 senator, 2 presidents, and it began with a grave. The letter exists. The Apache Nation has demanded the remains back. Yale has denied proof, but never opened the tomb to show what's inside. And maybe that tells you everything. Because whether the skull belonged to Geronimo or some other soul, someone's remains were taken, displayed, and celebrated by men who would later shape the destiny of this country. This isn't a plastic Halloween prop. It's a human skull, handled, worshipped, and woven into the rituals of America's most elite. Donald Trump once said, "These are a sick group of people." Maybe he's right. And maybe it's time even the fiercest critics, Democrats, socialists, or anyone who still believes that this is about left and right, starts looking at the evidence for what it is. Because if these men were willing to desecrate the dead for their amusement and ritual, what do you think they're willing to do to the living? This is the sickness beyond the symbols, the same sickness that turns oaths into chains and power into possession. They call it tradition. I call it a warning. My friends, we are all anonymous, and the evidence is there for anyone willing to look.
Both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
We're both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America?
Okay, our latest on the mask guy. Okay, this one is 8 minutes. Texas. Why everybody thinks Texas is going to be big.
Now, as you're watching this video, it's challenging California's 70-year dominance, and it's winning. In 2024, Texas added over 560,000 new residents. That's more than Florida, more than California, more than New York, Georgia, and Arizona combined. Every single day, 1,500 people move to Texas. That's a new person every minute. While California loses people for the first time in its history, this is why Texas is becoming America's most powerful state. Texas now has over 31 million people. Only California has more. But here's what's shocking. The gap is closing fast. In 2000, California had 13 million more people than Texas. Today, that gap is down to just 8 million. And it's shrinking by about 500,000 people every single year. At this rate, Texas could surpass California by the 2040s. Texas could become America's most populous state. For the first time in 70 years, California won't be number one. But population is only part of the story, because people don't just move somewhere for no reason.
What happened to you?
Since 2020, over 140 major companies have moved their headquarters to Texas. Not branch offices, full headquarters. Tesla left California for Austin. Oracle left California for Austin.
Remember this
Caterpillar
one?
left Illinois for Dallas. These aren't small businesses. These are Fortune 500 companies worth billions of dollars. And they're all moving to one state, Texas. Apple is building a $1 billion campus in Austin with 5,000 employees. It's Apple's second largest office in the world. Google and Meta expanded massively in Austin before the tech slowdown. All of this happened in just the last few years. Why are they moving? 3 reasons. 0 state income tax, 0 capital gains tax, and housing that cost a quarter of what it does in California. The median home price in San Francisco is $1.3 million. In Dallas, it's $430,000. That's 3 times cheaper. Companies save billions. Employees can actually afford houses. It's not even close. But the real power of Texas isn't tech or population. It's what's underground. Texas produces 43% of all American oil. Let that sink in for a moment. One state produces nearly half of America's entire oil supply. Texas keeps breaking production records year after year. The numbers keep climbing. Texas produces more oil than Iraq, more oil than Iran, more oil than Kuwait and the UAE combined. If Texas were its own country, it would be the 4th largest oil producer on Earth, only behind Saudi Arabia, Russia, and the rest of the United States. The Permian Basin in West Texas is the engine driving everything. In 2024, the Permian produced 6.3 million barrels of oil per day. That's 48% of America's entire oil production, from one region, in one state. And here's what's crazy. The Permian is one of the most productive oil regions on Earth. It rivals the output of entire countries and reshapes global energy. And production keeps growing every single year, despite using fewer drilling rigs. Texas also produces 28% of America's natural gas, and it has 35 oil refineries. That's 1/3 of America's entire refining capacity. More than India, more than every country on Earth except China, Russia, and the rest of America. This gives Texas massive geopolitical power. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Europe needed to replace Russian oil and gas. Who filled the gap? Texas. American oil and gas ships sailed from Texas to Europe in massive numbers. Texas Energy kept Europe's lights on, without firing a single shot. That's power. But Texas isn't just stuck in the fossil fuel era. Texas leads America in wind power by a lot. Texas has over 150 wind farms producing 30,000 megawatts. That's more wind power than any other state. If Texas were a country, it would rank 5th in the world for wind power. The Texas Panhandle and West Texas are some of the windiest places on Earth, even windier than most of Europe. Texas is also second in the nation for solar power production. Wind and solar combined provide 1/3 of Texas's electricity, and it's growing fast. So Texas doesn't just dominate oil and gas, it's dominating renewable energy too. No other state controls this much energy, and all that energy is fueling something massive. All this energy powers an enormous economy. Texas's GDP is $2.7 trillion. If Texas were its own country, it would be the 8th largest economy on Earth, even ahead of Canada. Between 2010 and 2021, the Texas economy grew by 39%. That's 1.5 times faster than the national average. Texas has led the entire nation in job growth for years. The state consistently adds more jobs than any other state in America. And Texas now has 54 Fortune 500 company
Two more
headquarters, more than
15-minute
California,
videos, guys.
more than any other state. But companies don't just move for the economy alone. They need infrastructure to actually operate. Dallas-Fort Worth Airport is the 3rd busiest airport in the world. It's the main hub for American Airlines, the largest airline in the world. But DFW isn't even the only major airport in Dallas. There's also Dallas Love Field, the hub for Southwest Airlines. Combined, they make Dallas one of the most connected cities on Earth. You can fly anywhere from Texas, quickly, cheaply. This makes Texas the perfect location for companies with national or global operations. Houston has the busiest port in America by tonnage. More cargo moves through Houston than any other U.S. port by total weight. Texas has 465,000 miles of pipelines. That's enough to circle the Earth 18 times. All this infrastructure was already built. Companies just have to show up and plug in, and most of them are showing up in one specific region. 3 out of every 4 Texans live in the Texas Triangle. This is the region connecting Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and Austin. It covers less than a quarter of Texas's land, but it contains 22 million people. That's more people than Australia. It contains 4 of America's 15 largest cities, and it's the 4th most populated mega-region in America. By the 2030s, the Texas Triangle will have as many people as Southern California, except it's all in one state, under one state government, with one set of business-friendly laws. And more people means something else. More people means more political power. Texas gained 2 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives after the 2020 census. It now has 38 representatives. That's 15% of the electoral votes needed to win the presidency. California lost a seat for the first time ever. Texas is gaining power while California loses it. By 2040, Texas could have more electoral votes than California. That would completely reshape American politics. So what does all of this add up to? Texas isn't powerful because of one thing. It's powerful because of everything. Massive population growth, an exploding economy, the largest oil and gas production in America, leading renewable energy, world-class infrastructure, Fortune 500. Texas is doing something no other state has ever.
Okay, it's for our Texas people there. We are going to do 2 more 15. The one lady with the glasses, you guys like her? Oh, wait. I think we might go 3. I don't know. Let's see how.
This was one of the biggest news stories in the
13 minutes.
United States. A judge, Judge Hannah, was found not guilty of harboring an illegal
He's a new
immigrant,
guy.
but found
Wait,
guilty,
maybe not.
which is a felony, of obstruction. And here we are today. Judge Hannah Dugan is no longer a judge. She is now former Judge Hannah Dugan, and her defense team is looking to drop that guilty verdict on the felony. Now, none of this should be surprising to you, considering former Judge Hannah Dugan's defense team, after the trial, they were a little confused how you could be guilty of obstructing the arrest of an illegal immigrant, but then not found guilty of harboring an illegal immigrant. In fact, here's a very quick recap before we get to the documentation submitted about dropping the guilty verdict. Real fast, check this out.
And so the jury in count 1, were asked,
does she have to know that this specific person is being helped? And the answer was yes, and they found it not guilty. And then in count 2, so the exact same conduct, the answer is put differently. No, you don't have to know that fact. And she's found guilty of count 2. And of course, count 2 was the more serious of the 2 charges.
Now, keep in mind, the interview you see right here, this happened shortly after the guilty verdict. So again, I know I keep saying it. You shouldn't be surprised that this is happening right now, a request to drop the guilty verdict. Now, this is a 46-page document submitted to the court. I'm not going to read all 46 pages, but I am going to read to you probably one of the more relevant points as far as this specific talking point and the actual argument being reiterated from the defense. And real quick, make sure to please subscribe to my channel. Make sure to please turn on notifications. We go live every morning. In fact, when Judge Hannah Dugan was found guilty, we were live within minutes of the verdict. So again, I don't want you guys to miss a thing. Those live streams are a lot of fun and informative. Okay, so the government failed to prove the required nexus between the conduct and knowledge of the specific charge administrative proceeding, and the jury instructions constructively amended the indictment to permit conviction without proof of the charged conduct, like we kind of just heard in that interview. Indictment in answer to jury question on count 2. Count 2 alleged a violation of 18 U.S.C. 1505 through 5 specific acts that Judge Dugan undertook, all tied to the same particularly identified pending administrative proceeding, the administrative arrest of EFR R6 at 2. In fact, the indictment left no doubt that the government was bound to prove that Dugan acted with specific knowledge that the administrative warrant was for EFR. And just so you know, EFR is the man that ICE was trying to arrest. Eventually, he was arrested, and eventually he was deported. And by the way, also found guilty of what he was going to that courthouse for. So keep that in mind. During deliberations, when jurors, not surprisingly, inquired as to Dugan's required level of knowledge regarding the identity of EFR as the subject of the arrest or proceeding, the government backtracked, repeatedly arguing that knowledge of a warrant not tied to a specific name was sufficient for conviction. CTR 9/2023, prosecutor arguing you don't have to know the specific identity of someone for a pending proceeding. She doesn't have to know who the arrest warrant is for to impede. Over defense objection, the court adopted the government's position and instructed the jury as follows. To know of, and the word of is underlined, the pending proceeding, the defendant needed to have sufficient knowledge about the nature of the proceeding. The sequence of events leading to the question and answer on count 2 demonstrates the significance. The count received 2 near identical questions posed by the jury, one as to each count. First, as to count 1, the jury asked the court whether or not Judge Dugan needed to know the identity of the subject of the arrest warrant. For example, his specific name, TR 909. To answer the question, the court looked to the grand jury indictment and language of element 2 of the charged offense, TR 909-18. The court ultimately responded correctly. In order to commit the offense charge in count 1, the defendant needed to know the identity, the subject of the warrant, TR 918. The jury then asked the next substantive question, this time related to second element of count 2, whether or not Judge Dugan needed to know the identity of the subject of the pending proceeding, TR 919. In arguing how that question should be answered, the defense asserted that the answer should be yes, like the answer for count 1. To support its position, the defense pointed to the language of the grand jury's indictment, which specifically alleged that Dugan endeavored to influence, obstruct, and impede the due and proper administrative of law under which a pending proceeding, namely the administrative arrest of EFR. R6 at 2, it followed. The defense argued the government had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Dugan knew of the administrative arrest, EFR, the pending proceeding specifically listed in the indictment. Okay, so what does this all mean? Well, what it means is Hannah Dugan's defense team is basically arguing she was aware of an administrative warrant, but she wasn't aware of who the warrant was specifically for. Thus, how could she be found guilty of obstruction, but not found guilty of the harboring, in which she would have to know who the administrative warrant was for?
Breaking news, former Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan is formally asking her guilty verdict to be reversed.
Yeah, Dugan's legal team filed the motion late this afternoon. In dozens of pages, her attorneys argue the felony conviction cannot stand. In December, a jury found Dugan guilty of a felony for obstructing federal agents during an immigration arrest. She has since resigned as a Milwaukee County judge.
Now, in that 46-page document, there are some other issues or evidence that the defense did provide as far as why they want the guilty verdict dropped or why they believe it should be dropped. Again, we're not going to go through all of it, but I do want to let you guys know it's not only because of some of the issues between count one and count two. But let's continue with this story.
Derek Rose is covering this for us tonight. Derek, state law does not force her to forfeit the money.
Yeah, Deanna, a spokesperson for the state agency which administers pensions says a Wisconsin retirement system pension is an earned benefit of employment based on a person's contribution and eligibility. And
so this was a pretty big story actually a month ago, and I was holding on to this until we got to this point. So one of the big questions people had was surrounding the pension of Hannah Dugan.
Cannot be taken away. In fact, state law does not require someone to forfeit their pension because of being terminated or criminal charges. Last month in federal court, a jury convicted Dugan of obstructing a planned immigration arrest outside her courtroom at the Milwaukee County Courthouse in April. Dugan resigned her position as a circuit court judge on.
And to be clear, Hannah Dugan did resign.
Saturday, she's planning an appeal and has yet to be sentenced on the felony conviction. There is an exception to the law, though. It is narrow, but it authorizes the state to withhold pension money if a court issues a restitution order. Now, only in cases, though, involving felony theft and misconduct in office. That is not the case here. Dugan's pension amount is between her and the state of Wisconsin and not subject to open records law.
Mountain Performance TV is the hardest working software in television. Get started today at mountain.com.
Diagnosed with Crohn's disease and struggling with your symptoms? It's not too soon to talk to your doctor about Entyvio.
Okay, so leave your comments down below how you feel about this. I know there were actually a lot of questions surrounding this particular topic, and now you have your answer. So Hannah Dugan has actually been quite silent about the entire proceedings. From the very beginning up until today, you don't hear too much from Hannah Dugan, even when she was a judge during this entire case. But we do have a little snippet of what Hannah Dugan said when she did resign.
Also new today, the Milwaukee judge convicted in federal court announces she will resign from the bench. The governor's office confirms to 12 News Hannah Dugan submitted the letter today. And in that resignation, Dugan said in part, "My faith in God and in our legal systems leads me to trust that in the long run, justice will be served for an independent judiciary and for me."
And even Hannah Dugan is indicating in the long run, I think she knows this is also going to be a pretty long process in general. Again, this story is far from over, people.
Quote, last month, the jury determined Dugan obstructed federal agents trying to arrest an undocumented immigrant in the Milwaukee County Courthouse. Dugan could face up to 5 years in prison. Her sentencing, though, has not been set, but Dugan's lawyers have already asked for more time to prepare their arguments for an appeal.
And just so you are aware, the sentencing has still not been set as I make this video.
In a December taping for Upfront, her legal team revealed they'll ask a federal judge to set aside her guilty verdict.
And here we are today.
Does Judge Dugan accept the verdict from the jury that came down Thursday night?
Well, you always, I mean, obviously the constitutional system that she's devoted her life to is that we rely upon the jury system. Now, you make arguments that the jury was improperly instructed, especially on those questions. That's all fair game for anybody in a case.
Okay, so going back to the documentation from the defense, I found this part rather interesting. I thought you might as well. The jury was offered no context or guidance for how to consider Dugan's legal right to act. This was a very big argument since day one of this entire proceeding that as a judge, you can do certain things. And what Judge Hannah Dugan did at the time, she should be protected as a judge. Now, again, she is former Judge Hannah Dugan, but I am talking in the context of when she was a judge. The jury was offered no context or guidance. Again, the government took the position that Dugan had no legal right to take any action in opposition to the ICE arrest plan. And this court rejected jury instructions that would have provided guidance, even in limited fashion. R57 at 21, proposed instruction number 12, a defendant who has a legal right to act does not corruptly endeavor. On the indictment's own allegations, the only acts Dugan did all were within the ambit of her state statutory powers as a judge. All 5 of them were part of a judge's job. As this court held in adopting the magistrate judge's recommendation on Dugan's motion to dismiss, at least 3 of the acts were routine. No act in the indictment and none that the government's case in chief arguably proved in the light most favorable to the prosecution. And just scrolling down, it says, but more importantly, nothing in the case law limits the legal right to do something to the exercise of a constitutional right or assertion of a recognized privilege. As this court sought to limit this concept, R97 at 6, limiting legal rights to those such as taking the fifth or asserting a valid privilege, the court cited no authority for that limitation. And again, if you guys have been subscribed to my channel since day one, we were reviewing a lot of reviewing as far as what Hannah Dugan could do or not do. And of course, this was one of the main arguments from the defense that, look, these charges should already have been dropped even before we got to the trial. This was the argument from the very beginning, and it looks like the argument is coming back. And it looks like the defense is trying to bring their talking points and the evidence they have in which the guilty verdict should be dropped. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I really did my...
Yeah, that guy is good. I think everybody likes him. Now, the other one, the end of night, is that one lady with the glasses. She talks fast, but I think she does a good job. This will be the last one. We'll go 3 o'clock tomorrow, you guys. 3 o'clock.
Chat, and then I can hit.
A lot of the big Silicon Valley names today exist without the involvement of the CIA or In-Q-Tel, the CIA's venture capital arm. Or in the case of, Facebook, you have sort of a DARPA connection there. So a lot of these, Silicon Valley companies, we were sort of sold this narrative, oh, it's just these guys in their garage and look at their brilliant startup. If you actually look into the narratives in a lot of those cases, that's not what you're going to find. You're going to find, In-Q-Tel or connections to powerful people and deal making and whatnot. But in a lot of the bigger names, you find the national security state there really from the off, and it has sort of, that relationship has been relatively continuous from their founding onward. So I think if you look at Silicon Valley specifically, there's a really good book called Surveillance Valley by Yasha Levine. In looking at that, it sort of shows how the military industrial complex, which I would argue is really the military intelligence industrial complex, that particular group is looking as early as the Vietnam War of using what later becomes the internet, but technology as a way to surveil the population for the purpose of dissident hunting, like what we now see as the war on domestic terror, that they're trying to sort of foist upon the public using, of course, Silicon Valley as the means of doing that, or rather Silicon Valley products. So this is sort of a very long-standing agenda. And this was originally piloted in Vietnam as something called Operation, or the Phoenix program, and was used extensive databases and, the technology of the time as a tool to basically launch a war of domestic terror within Vietnam, which resulted in a lot of civilians and alleged dissidents and all of this stuff. And if you look over time of the deep state or this particular factions of the national security state over time, even going through Iran-Contra, for example, you have the creation of something called the Main Core database, which was a names of millions of American perceived dissidents in the United States who, in the event of a vaguely defined national emergency, would be rounded up. And this, of course, is something that these actors have done in other countries, especially in that period of time they'd been doing for decades, from Vietnam on, from Vietnam to Operation Condor in Latin America, which the CIA designed and helped run, and then some of the stuff going on in Central America, later. And they intended to turn this particular group behind Iran-Contra, intended to turn these tactics and this, basically this war, this style of war, back on the American public at some point.
The internet is worse than ever, and companies have taken full advantage of this. Every click, every search, every website you visit is being tracked, logged, and sold. Your data is the product, and most of the time, you don't even know who's buying it or what they're doing with it. You may say to yourself, I don't care, I have nothing to hide. But privacy isn't about hiding. It's about control. It's about deciding who gets access to your personal information, your location, and your online activity. That's where Private Internet Access, or PIA, comes in. With Private Internet Access, you can safeguard all your online activities with military-grade encryption, protecting you from hackers, governments, and even your internet provider. Plus, they have a strict no-logs policy, which means they don't track or store any of your browsing history, so your privacy stays private. One click and you're protected. No complicated setup required. That's why we use Private Internet Access. Get 83% off and 4 months free using our link for a limited time. You can click the link in the description to try it out today.
And these particular people were also very much intimately involved with a lot of these networks that Silicon Valley came out of. And so it's really no coincidence that today you sort of see this unfolding now. And the main core database, for example, the deep state never destroyed that. It still exists as far as we know. The last mainstream-ish media report on it was in 2008. And in 2008, it had 6 million Americans on it. I would assume that's higher now. Wow. But basically all of the surveillance of the NSA, that the NSA and all the other agencies suck up on you and data mine from you, it's all linked to your name in that database. So it's just a massive trove of data. And the way they turn that into actionable intelligence is through Palantir. Palantir is a definite CIA front company funded with, Peter Thiel's money, but also with NQL money from the off. Yes. And for the first, I don't know, I think 3 years as a company, their only client was the CIA, which basically molded their product into what it is. And according to Alex Karp, who I believe is still CEO of Palantir, the CIA was always the intended client of Palantir when it was created. Palantir, from the evidence, seems to have been expressly created to replace a DARPA program called Total Information Awareness that was designed and going to be run by one of the top people from Iran-Contra, John Poindexter, who's also considered to be one of the godfathers of modern surveillance. And Total Information Awareness was totally attacked in even the mainstream media, in Congress, the ACLU, across the board dissent. They said it would eliminate privacy in the United States and totally destroy the Constitution. And so the program was defunded, but it was resurrected with the involvement of Peter Thiel and Alex Karp and Richard Pearl, who's from the Reagan administration, was an advisor, the Bush administration, and one of the architects of the Iraq War. He was there connecting Thiel with Poindexter to sort of resurrect TIA as Palantir. And so that's essentially what happened. And in the same time frame, another DARPA program was on the chopping block for the same reasons, called LifeLog. And Peter Thiel comes in and essentially puts a bunch of money behind Facebook, which is, today is analogous to what the LifeLog program was. And the day that LifeLog was shut down is the day that Facebook launched. All very coincidental. What? Yeah. But then if you look behind SBF, at least what people have been able to surmise so far, there's this network called Effective Altruism behind it. And if you look at the alleged founder of Effective Altruism, he's a British philosopher named William McCaskill, which isn't his real last name. That's his ex-wife's grandmother's surname. So interesting he would choose to use that publicly. I know, right? Already red flags everywhere, right? So anyway, McCaskill finds Sam Bankman-Fried as an undergrad, tells him where to take an internship at this high-frequency trading firm that's not that well known called Jane Street. And then at Jane Street, this is where Sam Bankman-Fried meets the core group of, FTX before FTX exists. And the people that follow him to FTX are not just Jane Street alums like he is, but also Effective Altruists, which has sort of culty vibes. They have like shared housing and all of the stuff in centers that are sort of littering, all over the world at this point, and they manage a lot of money. And then he leaves Jane Street, even though he's very well paid, due to an alleged moral quandary related to the Effective Altruist philosophy, and then creates Alameda Research, which is the hedge fund or trading arm of FTX. And he co-founds Alameda with a woman named Terry McCauley, who hasn't not been there for some time, but she was tied up at the Center for Effective Altruism, which is...
Our bookstore is like a portal.
It's neo-Victorian, it's steampunk.
And we wanted our Wix website to be too. I'm Jenna.
William McCaskill's organization. So you have McCaskill pretty much all over this. And then he's also an advisor to an FTX fund by the end of it, and only resigned after the collapse of FTX took place. So you have this guy basically guiding Sam Bankman-Fried's entire career. And what's interesting, so talking about this pandemic obsession that Sam Bankman-Fried allegedly had, and that actually William McCaskill, before the collapse of FTX, described Sam Bankman-Fried as having, you have one of the other big Effective Altruist organizations organizations that has lots of money behind it. Open Philanthropy be the group that finances Event 201 and then gives loads of money to the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security and a lot of these other pro-biosecurity organizations that have ties to the 2001 anthrax attacks and Dark Winter in June 2001 that since us, more or less predicted how the anthrax attacks were going to go down months before they happened, among other things, including the Nuclear Threat Initiative, which is tied up with that too. So Open Philanthropy also actively very, very much donating to these causes. And the big name behind Open Philanthropy, that's also one of the big names in effective altruism, aside from Sam Bankman-Fried, is Dustin Moskovitz, who's like Facebook co-founder with Mark Zuckerberg. So you start to sort of see this network there. But what's the more you look at it, it's very bizarre because a lot of their backstory doesn't make sense. But they have, according to them, billions of dollars of money that they manage, and there's even like connections to Elon Musk at an effective altruist summit. Peter Thiel gave the keynote speech. So you have a lot of these Silicon Valley guys very connected to this movement. And some people have noted that effective altruism is actually most popular in Silicon Valley than elsewhere. So this particular network definitely merits investigating. And it seems to be a sore spot for some people. Lex Friedman, the very popular podcaster, did an interview with William McCaskill. The FTX scandal breaks. He deletes it. A friend of mine, Marty Bent, calls him out for it, and Lex Friedman blocks him. He's not even direct tied necessarily until you look really into it to Sam Bankman-Fried, but people knew, I got to delete my stuff I did with William McCaskill promoting effective altruism now. So there definitely seems to be something there. So the question is, if this is the network, that we can sort of see this William McCaskill guy, and he's sort of pulling the strings, it seems, on Sam Bankman-Fried, and FTX is involved in, weird financial stuff with Ukraine, with the Democratic Party, and what have you, how powerful is this group really, and what are they trying to accomplish? So in terms of what you mentioned as to what may have been sort of the agenda behind this, sort of following the problem reaction solution model, which seems to happen, relatively often. A few months ago, you had Sam Bankman-Fried basically promoting the idea that FTX would become what he called the Everything app. This is a buzzword I pay a lot of attention to these days because the Everything app is invariably going to be the app that is tied to your digital ID, to your central bank digital currency, your social media, basically, when they mean everything. Yeah, he wanted FTX to be that. He wanted it to be the bridge from the current system to that system. But there's other people that want that too. So Elon Musk, for example, when he bought Twitter, said he wanted to make Twitter the Everything app, following it off the WeChat model in China, which the WeChat in China is the closest thing, as far as I'm aware, to an Everything app currently in wide use today, because it ties together social media, your finances, all other sorts of services tied to just that one app. And the parent company of WeChat is one of the top investors in Tesla and one of the most active advisors to Tesla as a company, which, by the way, Jeffrey Epstein was also advising before his second arrest. But
so that's what I said at the beginning. Do you see how all of these tentacles intertwine in some little way? And it feels like, even just like similarities between where did Epstein get his billions? We can never seem to get an answer on that. Where did SBF, where did Sam Bankman-Fried get his billions? We can't seem to get answers on that too.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks there because the origin story is it came from these arbitrage trades between the price of that he was taking advantage of the price of Bitcoin being different in Asia than it was Japan and Korea, South Korea, I think, than the US. But in order to actually have made billions off of that, he would have needed a lot of capital already at the time to have made that much money that quickly. And he's not really giving any answers on where that money has come from. And according to some people that have looked into this even prior to the collapse, became very evasive when asked about the origins of this money. And as far as I've been able to see, looking at other people on Twitter and elsewhere, it looks like the only name tied to an injection of money at that period of time is one of the co-founders of Skype, who it turns out is an effective altruist, giving money to SBF at this particular juncture. But it may have been more than just him. But again, it's this particular network you see pop up time and again, and it's very odd. So this particular company, again, FTX, Bloomberg announced that they were being investigated, it looks like by the Southern District of New York, months before the collapse. So there was some sort of tip-off, I guess. You had a couple of the top executives leave, who again are either tied to Jane Street effective altruism or both, before FTX actually collapses. And then you have William McCaskill Center for Effective Altruism splintering into a bunch of pieces within the UK, like changing how it's registered. It's now been divided into like 5 or 6 shell companies, and William McCaskill has used different variations of his name to try and disconnect them from each other. So one's registered to Dr. William McCaskill, William David McCaskill, William McCaskill, Dr. William David, all these different variations, and they all have different. I mean, it's technically illegal, and that's what con men teams, normally do in like the British system to keep their companies disconnected and stuff. And he made that move in August when apparently they were starting to be investigated. So there's a bunch of weird stuff going on with this particular network and money. And if you look at some of the funds that the Center for Effective Altruism manages, there's the guys at the top of that organization. There's maybe like 4 or 5 of them, and they have like different effective altruist groups themselves. The biggest one being the Center for Effective Altruism. And they're just making grants to each other in a circular fashion. So one makes $1 million grant to this group, and then that one makes a, $500,000 or $250,000 grants to the next one, and so on. And it's all just changing hands between these same groups. And to me, that looks like money laundering. But what do I know? And weird that you have a FTX accused of money laundering in its own right. And they were also FTX, as soon as they started, were allegedly funneling large amounts of money back to the Center for Effective Altruism. So this looks like a big financial money scandal that's a lot bigger than FTX.
That it? Yep. She does definitely do a good job. She's been on for a long time too. Well, we did a great show again tonight to close out the month of January 31st. Tomorrow is February 1st. So a way to close out the month of January. So yeah, we'll go 3 hours tomorrow, 3 to 6 or something. And thanks, Carol and Lucy, Tim. And hopefully I'll get her phone back up on Monday. Okay, hopefully we'll be back tomorrow. A lot of intel out there. A lot going on. So, another night, a good day of intel. We made it. So, everybody enjoy your Sunday day off. And I'll be on at 3. And God bless everybody. Love all. Remember, please hit the like and make sure you're subbed to the. I hope I got that one video off on time. But make sure everybody subs to the backup channels. Just look up my name there in the description box. So stay safe, stay strong, keep the faith. Never give up. Signing off, Chico and you until tomorrow afternoon. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.